Right. Yes, sir. You dropped it. Mhm. Good evening, sir.
Not this weekend, probably next weekend. I do want to get up there early in the season. It's gonna be early, but there's rest. Last couple of nights out. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Excuse me. So I think just to start tonight, the best way to do this, we've got Assistant Chief Stahl to give the fire department overview. So let's let him do his piece. I'll speak a little bit on the city manager and clerk's office. I think Angela will be on the line. We'll talk a little bit about the comptroller's office. I think those are kind of check the block discussions at this point, but I think let's go ahead and let Ken work through his presentation and get the questions out.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
Just for the people that are attending remotely, if you click on the handout section of the on the website, on the city's website, you'll be able to get this presentation up on your computer screen. Okay, so this will be a 2023 budget presentation. First slide we're going to go to. It's very similar to the one that the city manager presented last year. And it gave different ways we could run the fire department. Currently, we have the red, which is there'll be a fire chief, 4 captains, and 12 firefighters. I have that listed as unsustainable. In further slides, I can explain that. I'm recommending 21. I believe that's the most effective and the most efficient. I intend to show you how that is accomplished. And 25 would be my goal to get to the 25 number, which would give us a chief, 4 assistant chiefs, 4 captains, and 16 firefighters. So as far as the current level of staffing that we have, there's several reasons why I feel it's unsustainable. Most of it is because of contractual overtime. So if you'll see on the slide, in July of this past year, we were put back to a 5-man minimum. So that amounts to 8,760 hours a year. And then with scheduled vacations, holiday and comp time is another 5,376 hours a year. So what that equates to is 885 hours per firefighter per year, or 74 hours per month per firefighter, in addition to their scheduled time to work. We have had no issues filling overtime, but when you're looking at working 2 extra weeks a month, it is wearing on the guys, and I'm assuming that it's affecting probably their home life. So again, I don't believe it's sustainable just for that one reason. I believe there's going to be burnout coming forward.
So this is with the red, shall we say?
This is the current structure that we have. Yes. Now, one thing that's not on this slide is, so I use the term contractual overtime, but it's just covering the fifth man coverage, the vacation, the holiday comp. Per the contract, members of the department are also allowed to use personal leave and compensatory time that they accumulate throughout the year. There's no real way to budget for that because you don't know when they're going to use it. And these numbers are barring any significant illness or injury. So with a staffing of 5 and a shift structure of 4, there is overtime every day, every shift, and anytime somebody's off. So it's just a quick summary of the budget. If you look through the salary line, this would be to maintain the structure that we have. Specialized equipment hasn't changed much. Capital equipment, in the capital equipment line, I added a $75,000. That was, in talking with the city manager, it was our belief that we should start a capital reserve to purchase equipment. Fire engines are $600,000 to $700,000, and as you know, an aerial is $1 million. My belief was putting $75,000 away in a reserve would bridge the gap if we have to replace any of the engines which are aging. The salary line increase is due to, as I discussed, going to the 5-man minimum in July. And on the end, Angela predicts 19% increase in health insurance, which is approximately $150,000. I believe that will be for every department.
When you're looking at the 21 full-time employees, it's about $170,000 less than having 17 full-time employees.
What slide are you looking at?
On this one, where you had the capital reserve.
Slide 4.
Okay, yeah. So, well, that goes back to 2021. So, which is what we had then. So if you want to go to the next slide, now would be a good time to go there.
Oh, here we go.
This will be a comparison from 17 to 21. Now, if you look in the year 2023, there's only a $63,000 savings. That's because in hiring of the firefighters, they have to go to training. I predict that they probably won't actually count until 6 months into the year. So it only offsets the fifth man coverage by half. The hazard pay will go down, but there's also approximately $25,000 in equipment that'll need to be purchased and sending them to the academy. So the first year there is not a huge savings, but as you see moving forward in 2024, the savings is $264,000. And in 2025, the savings is $233,000.
So this is what I said several times throughout the year during council meetings. It's cheaper to have 20 or 21 guys than it is to have 16 or 17.
I agree with a 5-man minimum.
The hazard pay, the overtime, all the stuff in there.
Absolutely.
If we hire 4 more, we don't get out a hazard pay.
You do. So currently the hazard pay is $6 an hour per individual on shift. If you hire 4 more, the hazard pay would go to $3. But now 5 people are getting it instead of 4. And if you look on the line, the hazard pay line, it shows you the savings. It will go from $199,000 to $124,000, $70,000 savings just in hazard pay alone.
I just don't understand how you can't afford 17 or 21 with millions of dollars in shortfall on our budget.
Well, we could take a look at eliminating some of our legal fees and maybe we could find some money.
did find money. We had a great fund balance for a while.
I know.
Hey,
Spent
counsel.
it all on legal fees.
Council, I'll just ask that during the time Ken's making his presentation, if we could just direct questions to him and keep it on a professional line, please.
You can ask.
I can say that I haven't been given the go-ahead to actually hire, so I haven't interviewed. We do have 4 current members on the list, and I do know that 2 of them, I believe I could count them immediately. So if they're, let's say, for instance, the fire academy doesn't start till April, I believe I could put 2 on and immediately save $6,000 a month because they have training enough to count as a man. So for
Starting
every,
this year? Or
we would save money this year also. I'm only talking about next year's budget, but as soon as they come on, it would be a $6,000 a month savings.
So you got 2 guys that are already trained.
They still have to go to the fire academy, but they have enough training to count them as a firefighter on shift after maybe a week or 2 of in-service training.
And that would save about $6,000 a month.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's the 17 to 21 comparison. Any questions? So here, the next sheet is just pretty much what we just went over, just to have the numbers there without having all the other information. The other is just a breakdown if you want to look at it to see how the numbers, how we got to the numbers. Angela and I worked at it on several occasions, so the numbers are solid. So you're looking at over a 3-year time span, a savings of $562,000.
Have we heard anything back on Safer yet?
So the SAFER grant, I check it every morning
I'm sure.
and I check it every day before I leave. The latest update on the SAFER grant is that 64% of the funds have been awarded, which is $360 million. There is still $200 million available. They have extended the deadline till the end of October. The last awards were given on 9/21.
Okay.
And to date, only 2 fire departments in New York State, Troy and Saratoga Springs, have been awarded any funds through SAFER.
Okay.
So with the budget shortfall, I've been asked to come up with potential savings to bridge the gap. Our department's been working for years on a 0-line budget for the extra stuff. It's always the staffing. So the suggestions that I would have would be by hiring the 4 firefighters would be a $64,000 savings. And I could probably do away with the $75,000 capital improvement fund. We've never had one. And I could do away with $25,000 in specialized equipment.
I don't see your itemized equipment.
I don't have an itemized equipment. I have a equipment line, which would be, if you go to, we can go to the next slide, Kathy. So this is just the salaries of the individuals that would be employed. We can go to the next one after that. So the final slide is the actual line items. I don't have detailed specialized equipment. The things I would be able to give up is I put in, we had a stair machine that we were looking at I was looking at purchasing to help keep the firefighters physically fit. It's around $10,000. And there was a robotic piece of equipment we were going to use for fire prevention that was $12,000 to $15,000. So
like a good choice. We got like a three-story stairs, right?
we have stairs.
You
Yep.
guys do
Yeah,
stairs?
we have stairs. They've been actually doing it quite often lately. So just the stair machine is something that most now with the physical agility that you have to test that you have to pass to finish the fire academy, the stair machine is what they utilize. So it was a wish list item, but
Can we get a list of your itemized capital equipment?
so the only thing in there that was specific were those 2 items. So when they come out, that will put the specialized equipment down to $24,000, and that's just maintaining hose, nozzles. There's no actual items that are being, it's just as stuff comes up through the year, we go through $20-some thousand worth of equipment that gets damaged or has to be replaced. And we deal with it as a need basis. I could try to break it down for you if you would like, but we don't know until we need it. So we are in a very good spot, equipment wise. Almost everything's been replaced or upgraded. But if for some reason one of our portable radios just gets damaged or destroyed, that's $6,000 alone. So.
Oh, wow. What about turnout gear?
So turnout gear, there's 2 sets of turnout gear figured in that line.
Okay.
We try to buy 2 every year.
That's right.
They only have a 10-year life span. So
That's what I wanted to know, because I know that we started doing that years ago.
yes, I'm still purchasing 2. And then my hope is if we can get through the year without utilizing all that money, purchasing more turnout gear. I'd like to get to a point where every firefighter has 2 sets of turnout gear that allows them to decon after a fire and have a fresh set of gear that they're not to wear on shift.
Have we ever had that?
We have through the transition of buying new turnout gear. Sometimes there's a lap where a couple guys have 2 sets of turnout gear. I think most of them probably have 2 sets of turnout gear, but I don't believe both sets meet the 10-year requirement.
Okay. A lot of times we get grant money for turnout.
We can. That would be one of my recommendations for the assistance to firefighters grant. We put it in, and that part of the grant did not get accepted this year.
Okay.
Another item which I don't have an exact figure on, but is also on the specialized equipment. I spoke with Riverview Correctional Facility to look at having them build us turnout gear lockers for the fire station. That was also in the grant that we were not awarded. They're going to do it at the cost of materials. So
That's in this 25?
that would be in the 25.
It's a great use of that facility.
Yes.
It's good thinking outside the box.
So your total specialized equipment is how much? With this 25 gone?
40, well, with it gone would be $24,000.
24, okay. So this is like double.
Yeah, let me just give you a number, because I feel like it's okay to grind the hairs, Counselor, but just to be clear, their budget is $4.2 million.
Right.
If you add up everything you're talking about right now, it amounts to $234,000. So there's nothing here. This is all
Drop in the bucket.
and it's survival stuff to keep. There's no frills here. There's nothing left in it. So just if you look at the sheet, it's blown behind it. 4.197 million is the total fire department budget. Pull together every line that is something other than a personnel expense, and you get 234, call it $235,000. And this is one of the things I've warned council since I got here. You can frag everything on the left-hand side of the budget, the non-personnel costs, and you can save a body-ish for a year, but the organization does without everything else it needs for a lengthy period of time. We have put an inordinate amount of money the last 2.5 years into equipment, finding grants for fire trucks, et cetera. I mean, we spent a lot of money. We spent a lot of money on radios. So I think the fire department's in decent shape, but as Ken alluded to earlier, nothing that gets bought in any of these organizations, especially the fire department and police department, is nickel dime stuff anymore. I mean, these portable radios are $4,000 to $6,000 a copy now. They used to be $500 or $600. Now they're 10 times that. So
So besides the truck that the state gave us, what other fire trucks did we get grant money for?
well, you got a grant for that EMS truck that you had there.
Right.
And so everything you bought in there it's been funded in that direction. We didn't put money aside for it. So just keep that in mind. You can do the math on the percentage of what 234,000 is of a $4.2 million budget. So there's nothing there.
A little over the 0.2.
So
A little over the 0.2.
yeah, a little. Any more questions for Ken?
So Ken, these numbers,
Can you tell me what you're
I
looking at?
know
Just let me know
the first night we were told we got a $3.5 million deficit. Okay. Shortly after, it's my understanding we knocked $1.5 million roughly off that $3.5 million. So with your 24 staffing and the cuts that you're changing, is that a part of the 1.5 million? Or is that part of the-
I wasn't involved in I wasn't involved in discussion that for it was 1.5 million. I was involved in a meeting that is where I came up with the $95,000 savings in specialized equipment.
Okay.
And the starting the fund to for capital equipment. And then I threw in the $65,000 savings by hiring. But that wasn't prior, I wasn't at any meeting for that other discussion.
But to answer your question, the answer is yes. And I didn't say we took $1.5 million off. I just said, take the pressure off you. I'll take responsibility for finding $1.5 million if you just want to jump on 2 million.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any numbers on the internet.
Yeah, we don't have a budget yet, so none of us have seen any numbers.
You guys keep saying we've got $1.5 million.
Do we got more questions for Ken?
I don't. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Just a couple things on page 1 of this presentation. So just understand, and I will say I concur with Ken's numbers, 17, 21, and 25, based on a 5-person minimum staffing. You can't sustain 5 people minimum with 16 people to do it. That's just not. I mean, at some point in time, and we've been, I would say, over the top lucky. No injuries that took anybody out. No, personal. I fell down riding a bike and my leg's broken. We haven't had any of that. We haven't had significant illness. In fact, our sick leave usage has been almost nothing. So we've hit about everything we could hit to keep this, but that can't be expected to continue. So if council's desire is to support outwardly 5 people, then there's got to be, again, the discussion of how are you going to do that? Otherwise, you are going to work people down. You'll find it impossible to fill the overtime at some point. So there has to be a realistic fleshing out of what the staffing level the council is willing to take is. And the discussion is sort of, you got to back into it. What are you willing to live with for your daily minimum staffing? And then allow the fire chief to provide you the number that he needs to be able to do that. What we're doing now is not that. We've backed into a number 5 that really is predicated upon us having 24 shift level workers. And even with that, that's not a high number because you're only allowing yourself 1 person gap. So you're gonna have some level of overtime programmed right off the bat. When you're allowing 2 people off on vacation, you certainly have to let people go to training, people call in sick the same day people are off. I mean, again, so you've only allowed that 1 gap. So any scenario here, even under Ken's proposal, there's an overtime component. It's not going away. And I don't mean overtime for the unexpected events. I'm just talking about the things that you can program similar to what Ken has done now. So it really all is about this minimum staffing number. That's really what it's about. And you can't say I want 5 on duty a day, but I'm only going to schedule 4 people to work. So that's where I think there's really got to be the reckoning of what are you going to be able to do. So council made a decision in the summer, leave it at 5 for the year we're at. So we gotten through the year, but you can see where these numbers are going to go. On the slide about, again, I think their projections here on the number of overtime hours, those are the things they know. That's just what they know. 8,760 hours in overtime. That's just what they know, keeping the 5th man there. Again, not even taking into consideration somebody gets injured. We've got to send people to training, et cetera, et cetera.
I still don't get if we hired 4 more, we would still have substantial overtime.
You will.
So I don't understand. But we still got, you'd probably have.
If you hire 4 people right now, you'll have 5 people on a shift, still maintaining minimum staffing of 5 people. People are going to take leave. People are going to get sick. People are going to go to training. You're still going to have it. And really, if you put 7 people on a shift, if you put 8 people on a shift, there's always going to be a component of overtime. Not emergency related. There's always going to be somebody's out, somebody's off, somebody called in. There's never overtime in this business is never going to be free when you have a daily minimum staffing. Some could argue you could set the shift staffing at 10 with a minimum staffing of 5, and you still perhaps could have overtime. It could occur. So that I don't think a no overtime scenario is something council should be to be looking at, it's just not, it's likely not possible.
I think the overtime would be maybe half, and hazard pay would be half, but it'd still be very substantial.
So if you look at the next slide, just a couple of things I want to point out, because this makes the point that I've been trying to make. And I think that council has to, these are just facts that I think we just keep looking away from. If you look at the 2020 actual salaries, $2.3 million with 28 FTEs. And in 2022, we had we programmed for 18 FTEs, and our budget was just a little over 2 million. With 17 projected in 2023, our personnel budget is expected to be $2.3 million. The same when we had 11 more people. This is the bogey here. It's just the rate in which the costs are rising. If you just want to keep your costs in a reasonable amount of, this is what it was this year, we're going to see a 10% or a 15% increase in expenses. But you can see here with 11 positions different over a 3-year period, we haven't saved anything. There's no savings. The budgetary number comes up. If you look at the bottom number, it's $3.8 million was the total fire department's budget in 2020. If you go over to the 4.1 million that's budgeted now, subtract the 265 savings that Ken shows for the next year, just subtract that, you end up at $3.8 million. So my point here is 11 FTEs less, and it's the same amount of money. And the point this just makes for council, it doesn't matter what department we're talking about. This is the cost escalation that is rapidly outpacing the revenue escalation. So we can keep making this argument personal, because when we're talking about personnel, it's of course personal to people, but this really just is an economic argument right now that our revenue is not rising anywhere near as fast as the expenses are rising. And you can look at every line here, use the fire department as a good example. Their specialized equipment, I mean, the variance is really very little. I mean, it's minuscule in the grand scheme of their budget. Again, $4.197 million total program, of which only $243,000 is being spent on something other than paying personnel. It's not a sustainable model. The 17 to 21 roster, again, Ken's projections working with Angela are accurate here. I think it's just dependent upon council understanding what you're going to set is the daily minimum staffing. There's just no other discussion. My only arguments to council always has been, my hesitance in hiring people is the short-sightedness of where the budget may be in 2024 and 2025. We spend an inordinate amount of time training, equipping, and preparing firefighters, police officers, DPW workers for these jobs. It makes no sense to hire them without the belief that we're going to get the return on our investment, which ultimately means a career. So when Ken talks about hiring 4 people, I don't really have any hesitance in saying, yeah, I know it'll save money. My concern is we hire 4 people only at some point, knowing in the next budget year, our numbers don't look like we can sustain that. And so I'm just concerned about the human factor of doing that. His suggested budget options that he threw out, I think these are good. I don't know when we'll see an arbitrator's decision. The final arguments are due November 10th, 11th, the exact date evades me, but it's sometime in November, and then you'll get the decision after that. I don't think it'll be in time to impact your decisions on the budget. So, but I think council needs to, again, look at this from an economic perspective as well.
So it looks like from an economic perspective, it's more efficient to have 21, even over the next 3 years.
Sure.
And probably beyond.
Sure. And how many firefighters or how many police officers and DPW workers do you want to cut to add 4 more fire?
Well, it's hard to say because I don't have a goddamn budget.
It's not hard to say. You've been told.
I want a budget. I want an itemized.
On November 1st, I'll say it myself.
What are you?
On November 1st, as the charter requires, I'll give you the preliminary budget. I gave you a whole month extra.
Sorry, I blew up.
It's all right. And hell, I've been giving you, we've been talking about since February, the deficit. Now one of you have wanted to engage about how are we going to close this deficit.
I want to see a budget.
I told you the budget has got $3.5 million gap in
Now
it.
I got nothing.
I already gave it to you.
I got nothing.
You had, yes, I gave it to you.
No itemized
You
list.
have an itemized list. You know you do.
know, I don't know what employee is what. I mean,
How do you not know? Just look at your
because
last
I'm
year's
looking
budget.
at it.
Just look at your last year's budget. If you move last year's budget to this year, I've told you, it's $3.5 million gap.
And I know one thing, in
You can't make it up.
2019, we had a
You can't make it up.
$75,000 OT budget in the fire department.
Listen.
Now we're looking at 2.7 or 4.7.
Listen, let me quantify it. Because I don't want to debate it. This is just numbers now. This is just damn numbers. In the 2023 budget, right now, all right, you're expected to take in a little more than $12 million in revenue, right? I mean, I've adequately briefed that, right? We've been up and down the revenue. You got briefed in this chart. $12.518 million. That's what you're expected to take in revenue. Keeping the same number of people on the city workforce that you have right now, not talking about reducing a person, is $11 million. 88.6% of your entire revenue would be spent on keeping the people. 12% would run the rest of the city. It's $1.4 million, Dan. It's 1.4.
And it's cheaper if we have more firemen than less.
Yeah, except you've got to get rid of some more people to afford them
Probably
because
the
you
same with
don't,
the police
it's not the same. It's not going to be less, Dan. There is a gap of $3.5 million. Are you listening to me? 88% of your budget is going to pay for people. 1.4 million to run the rest of the city. You know that's not possible. That's not possible. You can't run this city on $1.4 million. Hell, you can't barely buy the gas for everybody for $1.4 million.
I know.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to split hairs over 2 firemen, 10 firemen, or 20 firemen. 88% of the budget right now is slated to go towards people. You can't do it with that.
So if we would have went with Sarah Purdy's measurement on, if we would have given up the $1 million a year in sales tax, we wouldn't have such a large shortfall.
You'd have 1 million less, Nicole. 1 million less is all you'd have. You'd still be sitting here at 2.5 million.
Right, but it's still better than 3.5 million.
It's still 2.5. It's still probably 20 employees.
But it's
It's hard
still,
to make
a
it-
million's $1 million.
You don't need to make a budget. There's not, you're going to get a budget. I'm trying to help you get prepared so we don't drop a bomb on the community on November 1st.
I can't even put an argument up. because I
It's
don't know.
right here in front of you. 88%. I gave it to you last meeting. 88%.
And it's cheaper to have 21 than it is 17. That's what I'm seeing.
Individually looking at the police
What
department.
do you do if you can't afford either?
How does 265,000 less close your $3.5 million
So the
budget
whole
yet?
purpose of this $3.5 million deficit is to basically run the city into bankruptcy and get rid of the fire department? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, Jesus, Dan. I mean, did somebody tell you to say that? Did somebody tell you to say that? It's right here in front of you.
We
It's
tried
right
everything
here.
to get the city financially sound, and we made good headway. You know, we followed the financial restructure board. That was 2.5 million for the fire truck, and which thank God we have. But they gave $1.5 million other besides that. Plus we had $1 million increase in sales tax with COVID, and we had tailwinds.
So
We
their
had good things going.
recommendation was at the 21, not the 16.
I'm sorry, what?
The FRB said their recommendation was either 20 or 21.
Yeah.
Fireman is the most efficient, which is
Yeah.
exactly what Ken just proposed to.
There's
tonight.
nobody arguing about efficiency for the fire department operation. I am simply asking you now, forget any department. Do you really believe we can spend $88.6 million of the total revenue and still run the city on $1.4 million? No. So we're just sitting here bantering about nothing then.
I know.
That number should be about 60% and you know it.
I need a budget in front of me. And
You're gonna get a budget in front of you.
November 1st. I mean, other than that, I think
So you're getting an opportunity now to say, how do you think we're wasting our time?
because
You're
I got
getting
the
in
fire
for it.
departments, right?
Right. You're gonna get everybody else's too.
But how does that fit in with the rest of the puzzle? The budget is a puzzle.
Everybody's
I
gonna
mean,
have to cut
You
people.
start looking
There's no
at
puzzle, man.
codes,
Everybody's gotta
secretaries,
cut people.
the whole 9 yards.
Everybody's gonna have to cut people. That's the
I
puzzle.
have to see a budget.
Everybody's
I
gonna
want to
cut.
look at it as a holistic, itemized budget.
And then what are you gonna do?
Then what?
I'm gonna examine it and look
Then
at it
what
and
do
go
you
from
do?
there. I don't know,
Then
but I
what do
can't
you
make that decision until I have it in front of me. I mean, that's what I always do. I go through, I look for
So-
lines. We have the budget. I got what I want to cut.
Have you ever been sitting here with a $3.5 million budget gap before?
Yeah.
When? Because I don't see it. When?
I don't see it either. I'm just being told it.
When was the last time you cut 15 positions? Or
I
20?
think we cut about 11 or 12 on a year or two.
Yeah, and we're back there again.
Yeah, well, I don't know because I don't see it.
If I told you right now the number was 100%, the number that we're gonna spend on personnel was 100%, would you still sit here saying,
Here's what I
I
don't
need to see the
understand.
big picture?
I
Do you
don't
not see the big
understand
picture?
if there's actually a $3.5 million deficit. How come I don't have the numbers in front
You do have the numbers.
I
I gave it
have
to you last
nothing.
meeting. You
I
got
mean, you might as well write on a piece of
Did
paper,
you,
look,
did you
3.5
not
million.
get this presentation last meeting? Or the one I gave you 2 months ago?
But
or
I
the one
want
gave
to
you
see an
before?
itemized budget. That's what we're supposed to do.
I'm trying to put together an itemized budget, but instead of the jelly plan of how we cut $3.5 million, don't you think that people would like to see their elected representatives come up with how we cut $3.5 million?
And if I had an itemized budget in front of me, I'd be able
Well,
to.
I can itemize it. I've given it to you. It's got a $3.5 million gap. Pull out your 2022 budget with the people you have in it
I
now.
wanna
That's your
see
budget.
this.
It's not, it's gonna look $3.5 million gap.
Somewhere we're spending money, and I want to see where, you know?
Other than what
It's
we
like I
got.
brought up last time.
Okay,
How much is the Reading project gonna cost?
okay. How many briefings have you gotten on that? 10?
Probably about.
I mean, you don't know the answer to that? You've
So
gotten
the
10
answer should
briefings.
be, we're gonna bond. That's what it should be, not just
Well,
blow
like-
all the money
so
and
you
run the
do-
town in the bank.
So you do understand what we're arguing about now is not putting down our 5%. You're talking about borrowing our 5%, which will add a payment to the general fund that currently has a $3.5 million gap. So I'll defer once again our down payment money, our paltry, tiny little city share. We should finance that too and add it to a general fund budget
Is it
that's
$4
already
million?
started.
Is it $1 million? Is it $2 million? What is it? How much is it?
You voted on it, Dan.
I know. How much is it?
Which is it? You voted on it.
How much is it?
The Ready project at Morissette Park,
Yeah.
up there is 400, a little less than 450,000.
Okay.
And we're getting 7 million.
For 800,000, plus we're gonna build a
We voted.
pavilion and a.
No, we're not. No one's voted about it. No
We
one's voted.
voted to
We voted on a park.
do.
voted on it.
Okay.
But let's just
Maybe
take
we
the
don't have
400,
money
let's
for
just take the 400, it's actually 360. Let's just take that amount and subtract it. So you're gonna defer that, which takes some off your 3.5 million, okay? But you're gonna put some back
Show me. Where
on a
is it?
20-year payment. It doesn't close down. The point is, do you really want me to be the one that says, cut 4 more firemen, cut 7 more cops? Because here's my conspiracy theory, is that it's too politically incorrect for you all to let anything come out of your mouth other than to criticize the plan I'll put up.
Yes.
Instead of being part of it, saying to the people on November 4th, 8 of us have worked together on this budget. This is the best that we think we can come up with. We shall need to hear from all of you, but we've all worked collectively on this, and it's going to be painful. The same way Purdy told you in 2016 it was going to be painful, and in 17, and in 18, and Jelly's been telling you, and everyone told you 2023 was going to hurt like hell.
So
This
what's
shouldn't
the
be any
tax
shock.
increase?
But let's just say this, again, hypothetically, raise the taxes as much as you can. You draft $1.1 million out of that. You go back to the constitutional tax limit, teetering with the brink at any given moment to raise $1.1 million.
I sure would like to see.
And then what do you do the next year when you don't have taxes to raise
I
again?
just want to see.
See what? You've seen
I
it
wanna
10
see the
times.
budget. Right
I've
now,
briefed
I
it
don't-
almost every month. Almost every month we've done a financial brief.
I see you give your little show, but I mean, I want to see budget. I
Okay,
want
well-
to see itemized numbers. That's what I want to see. Until then, like Councilor Reese isn't here. Why? Because he knows.
I think.
Because he knows what? Because he was the champion for an over aggressive tax return instead of over 4 years. He wanted it in 2 or 3 years, and now he's going to have to take it back. I mean, let's just be clear what's going on now with that. Let's just stop the madness here.
Okay.
I mean, I'm glad that he's allied on your cause now, but at the end of the day, Councilor Reese doesn't want to get involved in helping plan the preliminary budget in this year, but he had no problem the last 2 years when I was doing it, telling me what he wanted in it. So, I mean, we can just call a spade here.
Oh, I don't know where he stands on our ally situation.
Well, I don't really either.
But I'm
I just
glad
know
to
this.
see that-
I know that every other year until this year, he helped me put the preliminary budget together. No shortage of input came from John Reese on the 2021 or 2022
You're
budget.
saying
No
that
shortage.
Part of this problem is too much too quick.
Nope, because here's the thing. This city hasn't shown any sort of history that it will take the advice and move towards it quick enough. And when you hit the constitutional tax limit, you sort of ran out of the, hey, let's back our way out of this a little bit. Probably when you were around the 80% mark is when we should have started backing up. But when you got the letter that said without exclusions, you blew the tax limit, we were sort of out of the whole, hey, we could do this slowly and work our way out of it. Now, I'm not disagreeing that the approach to cutting the revenue was aggressive. There's no question about that. But I'm saying to you again, numbers wise, if you take it all back, it's only $1.1 million. You're still sitting here with $2.5 million. And you said to me in an email today,
One for
You said in an email today, you wanted to know about the capital projects. I haven't even thrown the capital stuff in here. It's another $2.2 million. So instead of 3.5, you're sitting here looking at a $5.7 million deficit. Now it just looks like I'm trying to make this impossible. So I didn't even include the capital. Because we haven't talked about capital the last couple of years. So why talk about it now?
I don't know that. I
You
don't
do know.
what's-
It was in the briefing you got right here.
Briefing
Right
you
here.
got there
Right here.
says capital.
And it says $2.2 million. Said it right there. Right there.
So how are we paying?
We're not. That's the point.
And what are,
I didn't even, right there. City Hall roof, you were quick to argue about the damn Dubisky Center roof. That was your argument last week. I mean, holy shit, like Shane brought a proofing project in here he didn't really need. I mean, come on.
I mean, you gotta.
Lafayette Pool, now seriously, let's just say that you were taken by surprise on a Dubisky Center roof, but you sure as hell know the pool's been going to hell in a handbasket for a while. City Hall roof they've been talking about for about a decade. And seriously, the Lafayette Street Bridge, I mean, I think you of all people know the Lafayette Street Bridge has been a struggle around here for a long time and no one's going to bail us out of that 1.1. But I didn't throw this in the budget right now because we can probably defer this stuff one more year.
Well, that's good to know.
We're still at 3.5.
And it's,
I'd like to see it.
it's.
You're good. You are seeing it. It's right here.
I
Our
want to see
building
an item.
property for another year.
Listen, I'll give it to you. I'll just play the game if that's what you want to play. No input until November 1st, and then sit here and shock and awe and police. So I'll propose 4 to 6 police department cuts here. I'm saying it right now for all 18 people who are listening. If we propose 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 police department cuts, 4 cuts to the fire department, 2 to 3 cuts from DPW. Now you're talking 11, 12 jobs. Hell, I'm probably not even there yet to balance the
But
budget.
it's moving backwards. We just proved that hiring for is cheap. Not only this year,
Dan.
but down the road, even more. so.
Dan, it is cheaper to the fire department budget, which is a budget that is not affordable right now in the grand scheme of things. Yes, it will be cheaper, $265,000. It doesn't close the 3.5 million. So let's just say we don't cut anything else in the fire department. That's all well and good. They're going to save us 265.
Good.
We got to cut many more cops and DPW workers to get it done. Are you ready for
I
that?
don't know about that,
Because you picketed for them first.
because I believe that that your overtime numbers are skyrocketing with the police too. You're saying they're not? No.
Not to the tune of $3 million. And again, if the police department is always going to have some overtime. You're not
The
evaporating
police
overtime.
department is.
It's the same- it's the same
less
thing.
than the fire department.
And we're in the situation now, the police department, that thankfully we're not in the fire department. You've had 2 to 3 people sitting on the bench most of the year injured that we're paying that aren't working. So that's contributing to the overtime as well. I mean, and that's just life and public safety. That can happen to them tomorrow as well.
So you're gonna have $250,000 savings by the time 2024 comes around, just in the fire department, in overtime.
A quarter million.
Yeah.
And a $3.5 million.
So if you did the same thing, and I haven't seen the police presentation, nor do I have numbers in front of me.
How are you gonna pay health care
I
for
don't know. I don't have
retirees
numbers
down
in
the
front
road? How are you gonna pay health care
I don't know.
for
I don't have
4
the
more
numbers
down
in
the
front
road? You're just kicking everything down the can, borrowing money, adding more to the retirees. You
I
know,
just, Dan,
somewhere along the
if you
line.
open the presentation I gave you last meeting, and it's painful that if you don't want to pay attention to me, which is fine, you should pay attention to the rest of the staff that you pay a lot of money. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 6 major budget lines. I'll read them for brevity here. Personal service, equipment, capital outlay, other contractual expenses, debt service, and fringe benefits. Those are the 6 major component expenditure lines.
Can I get an itemized list of that?
Yeah,
All that good stuff?
Yeah, you got it last meeting. You must have
I
talked
didn't,
on the way out the
still
door.
haven't seen it.
You got it the last
I
meeting.
haven't
This was the
seen an
presentation
itemized
of the last
budget.
meeting. This was it right here. When you take those 6 lines and you add up line 1 and 6, that is where we get the $11 million. So if you fragged the other 4 lines in here, all equipment, all capital, all contractual, and all debt service, if you took everything out of the budget except for the personnel stuff, right? That's a savings of $5 million, except we don't have all that in there. So, but let's just say you took it out. You just took everything away. You save $5 million. So you're back to being able to run the city on $1.4 million.
Can't do.
No. So in an 88.6%, what I'm saying to you is we can split hairs all day long on everything else in here. 10,000 off their equipment, 1,000, 20,000. But at the end of the day, the money is in the personnel cost.
We know that.
I know we
But
know.
we still have to itemize it.
It's going to be
And do
itemized.
exactly
But
what we did here.
where do we get rid of it? So did you ask the fire chief tonight how he could function with less than 17?
What's it look like on less than 17?
Hey,
No. What's it look like with 10?
We can
That's a great
absolutely,
question.
absolutely not function with less than 17.
What's it look like with 3?
Anything below 17, I'm not even willing to consider a conversation.
Neither am I.
Perfect.
I mean, what's most efficient is 21, right?
21 is most, financially, it is the best.
So
Bang
looking
for your
at the
buck.
budget, I don't even know why we would talk about anything beyond that. You're here, you're the fireman, thank you, fire chief. And,
Yeah, which is what I need. I need you and 3 others to say, we don't want any more cuts to the fire department. In fact, Jelly, we want you to put 21 in there for them.
that's what I
Okay,
want.
great. So that tells me then I got only 2 other departments really to look at to make up the personnel gap,
All right, so we'll
which is
deal with that at the next meeting.
all right.
See the papers. Perfect.
So how
All
many,
that arguing for nothing.
There we are.
Dan, how many people do we have to hire in all the departments to get out of this financial problem?
I don't know, and I don't have an itemized budget in front of me.
With your thinking, we should probably hire 20 and we'll be balanced budget.
That's the smartest thing I've heard you say in 2.5 years. Are we done?
So let's cancel the rest of the meetings until you come up with the budget. We're not gonna argue every year.
Why don't we just print it and give it to us? And keep the meeting.
Gotta get it done.
If it exists,
It's,
Well,
it can't not exist and not.
I really just wanted you all to hear from each department head on levels of staffing. I think Ken's presentation was well laid out here, but so that when I give you a budget perhaps that is less than 17, you've heard why 17 is not sustainable. But I'm telling you, any preliminary budget is coming with between 15 and 20 personnel cuts. Maybe 12 or 15 if you're willing to raise taxes way back up and dip a little deeper into your fund balance than you should to be safe. Mayor, we didn't take roll. It's not exactly required, but just for the record, Mayor Skelly's here, Councilor Dillabaugh, Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Scamperly, Councilor Fisher is been on the line remote. Councilor Powers and Reach are absent from the
Meeting, it's a work session. Technically, there's no attendance policy at a work session.
potato. It's important for the public to know who's engaging in their budget preparation.
or
On the list I sent to you, we had clerk, city manager budgets. Again, my intent for is to talk about staffing numbers. So, I mean, there's 1 person on the city manager budget. There are 2.5 people on the clerk budget. I don't know that those are
Who's
numbers.
the 2.5 on the clerk?
Clerk, the deputy clerk, and the city historian. Maybe she's not a half, she's a quarter or something.
thanks, Steve. You did a good job. It's not your fault people don't want to listen.
Oh my God.
Let's have some order back there.
All right.
Laughing is not allowed. Are we
Well,
done?
have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Boy,
No, I got